Welcome back to WAC. On today's episode of Wide Angle Conversations, a visual media podcast created by Stacey Barron and Rosette, we are joined by UC Davis English PhD student Colin Wingate, a dedicated hater and fake coffee aficionado. Colin and I will be talking about one of our favorite movies, Darren Aronofsky's 2010 film Black Swan. A little bit of a synopsis before we dive into it. Black Swan tells the story of perfectionist ballerina Nina, played by Natalie Portman, who lives in New York City with her controlling mother, played by Barbara Hershey. When the dance company's artistic director, Thomas, played by Vincent Cassel, decides to replace the prima ballerina, Beth, played by Winona Ryder, for their opening production of Tchaikovsky's Black Swan, which he envisions as this kind of moment of renewal for the company. He chooses Nina to take the dual role of Odette and Odile, the White Swan and the Black Swan. The Swan Queen, as it were. Facing mounting pressure from Thomas and jealousy of newcomer Lily, played by Mila Kunis, who Thomas says embodies the wild, free-spirited nature of the Black Swan, Nina begins to spiral into madness as she prepares for her performance. I do want to flag this episode for potentially disturbing content like mental illness, disordered eating, and body horror. We will definitely have images of body horror throughout, so if that's not your thing, maybe skip this one. Colin, thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all for having me. I'm very excited.
Of course. Would you like to start somewhere in particular?
Oof. You know what? Yeah, maybe we could talk about... when you were bringing up, like, the fact that Nina is playing a dual role. I forgot, actually, that is really interesting because, like, Tchaikovsky's, Swan Lake, Opus 20 was, like, written somewhere between 1875 and 1876, but its first, like, showcase was 1877. But the reason I'm saying all of that is to point out that, it actually is unusual for... a single performer to be both. Like, traditionally, there is someone who plays the Black Swan and there's someone who plays the White Swan. Like, there are very few cases where someone plays, like, both of them. So even, like, it already is, like, cast as something kind of unusual. Mm-hmm. And that, it's one of those things about dualism, which is kind of like, whatever. Yeah, everyone has both, like, light side or dark side. Mm-hmm. And a dark side, but it's also, like, very interesting where it's like, even, the idea that it's not about, like, it's not even just about dualism. Mm-hmm. It's also maybe something about, like, as something to see, the beginning of the conversation is like, what happens when, it's like, how much is the idea that there is a light side or a dark side rather than, like, what is the seeding repression of a desire. Mm-hmm. That, like the whole light side, dark side warring inside someone. I get it and I understand it, but I think the thing that I find more interesting about, the way that, like, Natalie Portman plays Nina is that it's like, what is it to imagine that, there is all of this, like, bubbling id that she's had her whole life that's always been reined in by, like, this White Swan persona. And, like, to what extent that you want to be, like, the White Swan persona is maybe just, like, a loose name for, like, all these different, like, attachments about control and, like, sensibility and domesticity that, like, has clearly been a part of her life, especially when you, think about her room, mm-hmm. like the clothing that she wears, and that, like, this moment is, like, when that consciousness about this other dimension of herself. Even that, like, I'm still very, it's like such a binary thing that you really can't escape it unless you're really cognizant about talking about it. But I just think that there's something else going on that isn't just light, dark. It's like actually about, like, what the extent that this White Swan is a way of, like, controlling all of this, like, id that's been bubbling up. And, like, it's now got to the point that it begins to, like, manifest in all these different ways.
So you're thinking of the Black Swan as the id, as, like, the true kind of animal nature of Nina, and the White Swan is the, like, superego, or what society is? Or are you thinking of it?
No, I think that's a way to read it, and I think I also read it that way. I might also be overcomplicating it because that is my nature. I love to overcomplicate unnecessarily. Yeah, I just don't know what it is. There's something about her face. Like when you see the shots of like all that control, like sometimes where it looks like she's on the verge of tears, like all this stuff, it's like, is it that there's a part of you already that like wants to come out? I just think about that scene where she's first meeting with Thomas and, right, she bites his lip. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's like the first time he's like, oh, there's something else going on in you. And I want that. But I'm like, maybe that's the thing that's always been going on in her and like years of like, especially her relationship with her mother and how her mother like clearly like structures her like as a white swan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like coming off like, yeah, the persona is like cracking along the edges.
That's interesting because when she bites Thomas' lip, Thomas essentially like sexually assaulted her, right? He's forced to kiss on her and which she didn't want, and then the lip biting in that situation is an act of self-assertion, right? Of like self-assertion, of self-defense, and that's like what piques his interest, and that's what causes him to decide to cast her, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He initially decided to cast someone else.
Yeah, that's real.
Certainly, like, right, there's this thing between the self or Nina's awareness of self, even, right? Mm-hmm. Do we want to talk about? You mentioned her mom, and I think the mom is a fascinating character, and in some ways, like the key to understanding a lot of this complicated, perhaps, surreal story.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about the mom?
Well, okay, it's so funny you bring up because, right, like, especially when you think about color schemes, the mom is always wearing black, right? Like, and so there are a couple things, like, and yeah, maybe, as we sort through here and there, we'll like probably talk about.
Nina's room is white and pink. She has white and like baby pink everything. She's wearing white and baby pink all the time. So there's like girlish color scheme is attributed to Nina. Yeah. And then Lily, the her kind of competitor, is always wearing black as well.
Yeah, like did you know how many like especially I don't know, like there are people who are always wearing darker colors, like Thomas, Nina's mom, Lily. She starts, right, like when you get the emergence of like as she is like after being casted and as she like slowly is like drawn into this like spiral of like the black swan, you notice that, okay, it moves from whites and some darker colors and you get like a gray, and then towards the end you get like.
And sometimes she like wears, like there's that.
Oh, that's right.
In the club where she wears Lily's like tank top.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the thing about
her mom and the like dark coloring. Like, do you wanna? What were you thinking of? In terms
I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, is it worth like a reading to being like, okay, are we gonna look for black swans and white swans throughout this like movie? Like, are people black swans? Are people white swans? And there's a way where I think that holds, and it's also like. Yeah, like as you were talking about, like what are the types of things that you attribute to either position, both as like, substitutes for conversations about like the id or the ego, or in this case, the superego very specifically. And is it also about like a question around like transpotting like the performative positions of each role, like, right? The white swan is something that like is as a performer is supposed to be understood as like being very controlled and about form. And the black swan isn't formless, but rather like the passion, the impassioned movement is the form.
Right.
And so like, if you want to do like how, thinking about that mapping schema, how do folks fit into that? If it's like within the terrain of the movie, it is about like different modes of attribution.
Sure. And I think there's obviously like layered application, right? Like there is one layer that is psychoanalytical with the id and the ego and the superego. There is that layer that is more kind of plainly about control and loss of control. Yeah. In particular, like the role of the artist and control and like relinquishing of control in the role of the artist, right? There was that scene when Thomas is kind of coaching Nina, when he says perfection isn't just about control, it's also about letting go.
Exactly.
And so he doesn't say it's about just letting go, and it's not just about control, but it's about both together, and like maybe as the artist knowing when to do each one, right? Or when to control and when to let go.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And because there is like this whole thing about like, I don't know, that's one of the reasons why like I love this movie is that like, one of the things it fulfills is like a very particular like trope that like I am very obsessed about. And it is about like artists who, overcommit to perfection in like the way that it like destroys their lives, which can be a thing about madness.
Right.
And then there is also just the thing about madness. And I want to say those are two different things where it's like, if one's desire to like create the best best art, the best expression of their art requires that like all of these other things have to be like tossed aside. Like what happens when that is about like, giving up, not just giving up control, but giving up like a certain state of mind. And like in one way it's like, is that a byproduct of the desire to like create perfect art? Or if it's like, this actually is like a dimension. And this is also like one of those things where you think about, I'm going to go down a very unpleasant route. But it's like when you think about all this stuff about like Thomas Mann or like Friedrich Nietzsche or Nietzsche, depending on where people land, it's like that whole like Apollyon and Dionysian way of like doing art. And so it's like, is it about like creating the most perfect version of something, or is it about the need to have a form of it be so prescient and like searing that it can't, like its only way to exist is like to destroy everything, and that includes your own life, right? Which spoiler alert,
she does. Damn. That kind of takes us to the ending a little bit, right? Because as she's dying, at the end of her performance, she says, "I was perfect. It was perfect." Do you remember what it was?
Well, she's like, first she asks, was I perfect? And then I think she says, "It was perfect." And because that's what like Thomas like affirms to her, like it was. And like even his look.
So even then she's looking for reassurance, right? Or like affirmation.
So it's like kind of a thing where it's like, this is what I mean, where the complication about like that Manichaean thing really gets kind of tricky, because it really is like, whether like is your dependence on being able to like always tabulate, this is a black swan moment, this is a white swan moment, or like if they're not even dual, but they're like inflections. Like they're embedded. It's a like, I don't know, like a coin, not even a coin.
That's like the middle of the Venn diagram.
Or like it's this thing that is turning on itself, and each turn is a facet of the dimension, but like it's not about, but it only works if it's also still mobile. And like, so it's constantly turning in on itself. Okay. So there are moments that are black swanish, but like you understand them because they're emerging in relation and through like.
Totally. That's very like Sergei Eisenstein's theory of film too, right? Is that specific scenes only have meaning in relation. Like relation gives meaning.
Yeah. I mean, like that's kind of like what I think a lot about, like the final, like both the sex scene between Nina and Lily.
Or Nina and Nina.
Exactly. Yeah, and then the reveal that you learned that there was never necessarily a Lily, but there was always a Nina. So then it's like, this whole thing is your attempt to externalize. Like, okay, here's the other thing. Like the thing about doubles are so funny because it's like, I'm of the mind that, there can be doubling, but really doubling is just, a self's attempt to like exercise and work through things that it actually can't do inside of oneself. So you have to create a version of yourself that is able to bear the problem, and that ultimately you will have to deal with it in some way. And I feel like Lily is that. Lily is like the attempt of trying to lose control, the attempt of like trying to push back against like the mother, the attempt also to like draw Thomas in, like, to be considered like a desiring figure. And I do think, and like how that lines and overlaps within, a conversation about like the power that Thomas has, like that is there. And everyone has talked about it, right? And yet that doesn't dissuade Nina. It doesn't dissuade Nina in her iteration as only White Swan. It doesn't necessarily deter Nina transitioning into it. And it certainly doesn't deter as the Black Swan, right? Yeah. So, all of like, but that couldn't be reconciled inside of her. She had to create a different version of herself that can like, eventually, she'd have to like do away with.
I'm interested in what you're saying in terms of creating versions of oneself to kind of find solutions to like something wrong, right, in the individual. I'm also interested in that, and also like inheritance, like genetic inheritance, right? Like in her relationship with her mom.
Yeah.
So there's like iteration happening between them two, because we learn kind of through subtext a little bit. Some of it's like spoken dialogue, but we learned that Nina's mom was also a ballerina, but she was only in the ballet course. She never like made it.
Exactly.
And she was 28 when she had Nina, and she always told Nina like, I gave up my career for you, but she was 28, which was relatively old for having a career at that point. Yeah. And Nina tells her these things throughout.
The moment that she has is that moment. Like, I don't know.
She like moves toward this like gradual rebellion against her mother. And we hear her mom's backstory like slowly, right, through these small rebellions, and then like her final kind of pushback. So in a way, it's like her mom is also trying to replicate and create iterations of herself, right? And then now she has this daughter who she can put all her hopes and like failed like dreams into.
Yeah, for the mother. Do you remember her name?
Beth was Winona Ryder's character. I actually don't remember the mom's name. I'm not even sure if she is named.
That's a good point.
But do you also remember, and so this is like the last bit I'm going to say about her mom, but do you remember how her mom fixates on painting Nina? And so
the room with all the... No, I think
there are portraits of Nina, and they don't look like Nina. They look kind of demonic.
They are. They're distortions. But and it's exactly what you're talking about. Like, this is like... It is funny to think about the doubling thing, because that's exactly what Nina, as the White Swan, very specifically is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, a version of herself that is like young. I know, and it's kind of like a tired thing about like parents who, children for them are like a way of rectifying like the failures of their own lives. And that's kind of like whatever. Like, that's a tale as old as time story. However, I do, the way that like you said, like clearly something went awry because those pictures are nothing like Nina. So like, what is like the replication of like herself? Like that's like, it's, I don't know, like it's feeling like, is it too like, are we getting too like Eschery? But it is like this thing that's like, trying to create a double of yourself in order to like, restore like a thing, like not even restore, but to gain the thing that you never achieved. And yet the thing that you have quote unquote created is also like flawed. Like one way is to say, is it like all these distorted, like demonic, like is that like the manifestation of like this darker id or swan or whatever you call it that's inside Nina, that somehow the mother was able to pick up on that and that's the whole thing, right?
Or
about
she creating it, right, through these like constant mirrors that or portraits she's showing of herself.
Yeah, I guess my thing is like I feel like there's a version where the other reason I like this is like I, like many other people, evil mad femmes are like one of my favorite like tropes. And so like there's a version where I really want to hold on to the idea that all of this is like deeply inside Nina, and like what we're seeing is like like all of these like spectral encounters with like a different will that she has that are like bubbling over, and that even not even herself or there are I don't know. That's why I'm always caught up about like Natalie Portman's face. Like there's so much being contained. And there's one version where I'm like, it's because she knows what's inside of her. And like all of this is a deep attempt to like rein it in. And that like, unfortunately, or not unfortunately or fortunately, right? Like the opportunity to become the principal like ballerina for this like is like allowing it to like seep out. And then eventually, right, it no longer seeps. It's out.
I wonder, like that idea of transformation, which I think is like deeply related to what you're talking about. This idea of a transformation that's biological, because she slowly starts growing feathers.
Yeah.
She has slowly develops webbed
feet. And it's like her nails are popping out, so bird claws. I don't know what the talons or whatever fucking birds have.
And so there's this physical transformation that's happening, but there's also like, I kind of think there's a mirroring between the prologue of Black Swan itself, which we open with. Yeah. There's like a prologue from the ballet where the evil magician, Rothbard. I honestly don't remember the name.
I also remember from the Swan Princess movie.
Was it Rothbard?
I think it's Rothbard.
It's such a good movie. I loved that movie when I was a kid. But Rothbard puts this curse on the Swan Queen, and she becomes a swan, right? Yeah. And so that's how the movie opens, is like that scene from the ballet, and then immediately after, it's kind of Thomas putting his curse, right? And that's leading to all these transformations and like all this madness.
No, you're totally right. Thomas, like if it's
Rothbard.
If this is like an overlapping meta thing, like if the movie is also loosely always supposed to follow like the schema of Black Swan, then Rothbard is both Rothbard and the prince, right? Like he's also supposed to be double, I think. Like the figure
Rothbard and the prince are doubling each other?
No, I think Thomas is supposed to be both of them too. Both the charming figure that is like desired and also the thing that elicits an excess desire, like elicits the darkness out of her by turning.
Totally.
Yeah, but I mean, it also fails because Thomas like has all of this like dark, not dark, like he abuses his power to sexually harass and maybe assault women in this company. Right. And I think that's like if you want to attribute, and we can be like, oh, that's the rough part of this, but like, even that doesn't fail because many charming men are evil. Right. So
I think Vincent Cassel based his character on an actual...
Do you know
the guy's name? He was like a very famous director of...
you're totally right.
And he would marry all of his ballerinas. Like, he would marry and divorce them, So.
It's not... Because the version that they're supposed to be using is Belinsky, but I don't know if Belinsky's the person. Because the only other famous, like, person I could...
I was wondering, like, what do you make of this? Because I think you've given us a lot to think about in terms of like this internal seed within Nina that's always persistent in there. But like, what do you make of this like external activation that's required, right? Or this like external catalyst?
I mean,
in like Thomas' choosing of her, in Thomas' manipulation of her, in Thomas'
that's what's
enchantment.
And that's like, this is also what's like, you're so right, because then like how do you like parallel that to the mom? And I want, like, we should focus on Thomas because I think
we can do both.
I just like they're both exacting these different like extractive things, but Thomas I think is important to think about because it also is like, I don't know if it's the movie's attempt to like have like a commentary about like the types of structures of violence that happen in like dance companies. I maybe that's just a thing that like if we're like responsible readers of like what is happening, we would like be like, oh, this is really fucked up and this happens. I think you're totally right. You're absolutely right. Cause it is like, I do think it's such a thing about, once again, like what are like the types of like languages or like affects that like can facilitate like types of like intense like violences and like subjections. And I think that like one of them is like, and I especially think it is this thing about being like these dualisms, because I think like the prince that enchants can also like, that enchantment can also like belay, like be subtended by all these other like violent things. And I think Tomas as a character does that. Like look like the way, like the types of intimacy that is at least made by coming up close, like it is supposed to be drawing in, and yet once again, like the record of the things that he's done, and Beth is that like the most present record that we get other than the gossip, like proves like that this is like an intense like experience and a violent process that can happen.
Do we want to talk about Beth a little more? We've talked about kind of Nina and Lily, and I think Beth is like the third piece in this triangle.
Yes, you're totally right, because I do think like, how do you place Beth in, like, because you have the mother who's like an older dancer, you have Beth who is now being understood as aging and now being like pushed out, and then you have like Nina double Lily or Nina double Nina, right? So you have like the kind of lifeline of like performers, and like you do, like once again, you do get a sense of like what Beth would become in, I think, in a way that would be Nina's mother. However, that's forestopped, right? Like, it's hard because, like I feel like what's interesting about, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm now caught in this trap of like doubling everything. And I think that's, part of the fun of the movie is that like, do you think about Beth as like a Nina, the possible of a Nina to come, is Beth a part of just like, being able to see like kind of long arc of like the ballerina, like this is what will happen.
Or what if Beth is herself a like tool for Rothwire, right? Or Tomas, right? Like what if part of Tomas, I don't know, like what if Tomas doesn't make ballerinas into Beths eventually? But what if Tomas uses Beths as a tool to manipulate ballerinas for like becoming something different than Beth, right? Because we can argue Nina never reaches what Beth is. Beth survived, but then doesn't survive, right, after her career. But like I kind of think of Beth as this pawn also that Tomas uses to influence Nina, right? That like there's this fear of, if you don't listen to me, if you don't realize your full potential, you're going to get old and you're going to be aged out the way Beth was.
Yeah, Beth is that. Yeah, there's a way that I feel like the movie, whether intentional or not, like treats Beth as like an outlier, but she isn't. Like she's like, so much of her is understood as like a particular type of exposition where she's like, oh, you think you know Tomas, you don't know Tomas. He's actually a scumbag.
Right.
If you didn't look at Vincent Castile, be like, oh, you are a scumbag. Yeah. Like you have the, well, maybe it's just French, whatever. We can save that joke for later. But there's just something like, do you remember? The scene where Beth is in the chair, turned around, looking out. You don't see her face. Nina returns because it's like after one of these different like dissociative moments, and she's like, what is going on? I need to make it right. And she lines up all the things that she's stolen. And
so she stole like Beth's lipstick,
nail file, a bunch of other, maybe a little bit of like, I don't know. And then but you don't ever actually see Beth's face yet, like, because she's turned and then grabs her arm and then turns and looks at her, and she's like, what are you doing here? Why do you have my stuff? And I forgot what Beth says before, like she starts just like stabbing her face with the with the nail file, and then it turns around and it's Natalie Portman's face, right? So it's like,
and then Natalie Portman runs to the elevator and she's holding the nail file now, in that scene. Yeah. So it's even that ambiguity of who's holding the weapon.
And who stabbed the other person in the face then? Because then that might just mean Nina did it.
Well, but that also happens at the end, right? Between Nina and Lily.
That's true.
Right? There's like this, there's a conflation of weapon holders and like recipients of the weapon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, what does she say as she's like stabbing herself either in the face or as Nina's stabbing her? Something about I feel like it was something about perfection. I don't think I wrote it down. Yeah, I didn't write it down, but yeah, it was something about. It was like I remember it being like a self-deprecating comment, whatever it was.
Yeah, because then it is and it's a thing where with Beth you have. I don't know how to say this, but it's also a conversation about, what happens when, like what is the life of an artist that doesn't burn out? And I say this very specifically because, she's aged and pushed out, but it's very different than Nina being able to like reach that apotheosis of like her practice and then burning out. Like I do think there is a thing about true artists that I think is suggested that Beth somehow wasn't able to achieve before she was like aged out. Yeah. Or not, she was pushed out because of her age. Right. That, Nina was able to do.
Or is Nina's really only accomplishment that she died at the peak of her talent?
Honestly, right?
How do we know Beth didn't also master the Black Swan? And then it's just by dint of continuing on, you're like never going to reach that same apex.
Yeah.
Right? Is it like, you know what I mean? Like the artist fading out versus burning out. Or fading away versus
absolutely.
I think a lot of the film is like very much concerned with just what it is to be an artist. And like ballet is the like metaphor of artist, like one form of artist that's kind of encompassing a lot of artists, but
it's this thing about like brutality, like what does one have to do, and this includes to themselves in order to like become the best vessel for like your art, and you get that right, like that's all the different scenes where you see them like preparing the dance, like the way that like. Yeah, you can see the way that their feet are like totally fucked up, but like they're still, but also simultaneously dainty. The way like they put on the ballerina shoes, or even the way that like you have Nina like rubbing her feet in like powdered glass in order to like keep the traction. Like you're seeing like all the like it is this thing that you can like you pointed out about transformation that like is it a question about degree and extreme? Like, in this case, what if someone's like, I have to completely rearrange my psyche in order to like facilitate my body and my mind to best like inhabit like this art. And then once again, who is able to do that? Who's not able to do that? Or to say that, like there has to be a certain commitment to the art that allows for one to like undo these things, which I know, like I said kind of earlier, but like especially when you think about just like being a ballerina, being a dancer on its own is something that like is deeply like exacting on the body, but us as like a viewer, you actually never see that. You only see like the choreography, you only see like the arrangement of sound and movement that is done, and you're like, wow, this is like beautiful, these are elegant people, but like that elegance is like also lined with like the way that like takes tolls on your body, and it's quite gruesome. Like, and once again, like if we come back to the question about like transformation, that's also what you see with Nina, literally. Like she is like, in a way, her body is also becoming some type of other than human, non-human, monstrous thing, whatever you want to call it, in order to become like a peerless dancer.
I'm also thinking of, in contrast to all these scenes we see of the ballerinas preparing their bodies, right, for like the grueling work that they do, also the ballerinas dancing and how like parts of their body are segmented by the camera. Right?
Yeah.
There's I don't know if you remember, but there's a scene where Thomas first kind of starts influencing this idea into Nina of comparing herself to Lily.
Yeah.
And they're watching her just like practice. And when we watch Lily practice, that is when Nina is watching Lily practice, we don't really see much of Nina's body at all, aside from like maybe her arms up in the air. We see her like laughing and smiling and her like hair kind of twirling around. And so I'm thinking of that in terms of the beginning, like a part of the process of Nina's seduction.
Yeah.
The seduction of Nina.
Yeah. Right. Once again, like Rothbar, like the spell, like, yeah, totally.
But also, it's almost like the seduction of the ballerina to then like teach her to be a seducer, right? Like to what extent is the artist a seducer of the audience, right? Right. If like our goal is to, if the artist's goal is to disarm the audience, to kind of get into the audience in some way, to break the barrier that the audience automatically kind of has up between themselves and like what's happening on the stage. I guess that was like another thing that I was thinking of is like the very prevalent forms of seduction happening between Thomas and Nina, between Lily and Nina, but also between the dancer and their audience as well.
I feel like the best example for that is all the way at the end when like Nina rids herself of Lily Angelina and like becomes into her own, because that's like, you notice the change in how she's like dancing with the two male ballerinas, right? Like it's a lot more loose, like you can like the way that like she's closer to their bodies when she's like dancing, like like they'll be able to like exert that seduction both like that I imagine if one is watching can see, but also that like your performers, like with your fellow performers who already like have a sense of your body from practicing to like have a totally radical different relationship to it that like is occurring. I don't know, like I'm trying to remember, like I feel like there is something more present about like this that final version of Nina that you get that she's like struggling towards in like all the way up until that for the the early duration of the movie, like that process of transformation. I think the thing about breaking that boundary, I think also is like so funny in the sense that like because the way that this movie is clearly like both I think very conscious about the fact that it is a movie about a performance that like the porousness of like the distinctions or like they're always trickling, so it's like I don't know, like because in this case we're the actual, like there is an audience that you see, but like is that the audience that like you're thinking about and talking about this, or are we the audience that's like thinking about it and noticing it? Like are we the ones that are like picking up on all this seduction, because they're just there, right? They only know what they're seeing, but we've seen it all,
right?
Most of it, like what is the type of like commentary or language or like discussion about art that is being had here that isn't just about like, I mean, I love it as a trope and I'm deeply obsessed with it, but I do think like is it supposed to be that like art that's like unstructured in some way will destroy you, or is it like, oh, in order to have like one's clearest best performance of what one does, like one has to do away with everything, and if that also means your life, so be it.
And perhaps like in tandem with like diligent practice, right? Is also moving beyond the diligent practice to then like release, right?
I mean, especially with this thing about like the multiple layers. I remember you bringing up, and I haven't seen it yet, that like part of the inspiration for this movie is this like other movie, Red Shoes.
It has like a lot of inspirations, but the Red Shoes was like a really big one that I could notice.
Yeah, like how, like I'm curious, for you to talk a little bit more about, because you especially you have an access to these three layers. This film, this play, or the performance, the ballet, ballet and like the movie itself. So like how did you find yourself thinking about the way that they're like
I haven't
roughing up against each
seen
other?
the Red Shoes in a while, but like the main way I was thinking of like visually, especially like the way the performance is like lit and filmed and like colored at the end is very evocative of the Red Shoes. But also just I think the theme of the artist and like the true artist as someone who cannot have a life beyond their art. That's like a major theme of the Red Shoes as well. That like to be an artist means to be like truly alone, and to be doing something that is kind of antithetical to ordinary life.
Okay, because this sets up another different field. Like if there is this whole thing about black swans and white swans, and there is also a thing about artists. So it's like like you have Nina's mother who like never was able to achieve like the type of status that she wanted. You have Beth who was forced out, and then you have Nina who's like in her quote unquote prime. So then it's like, okay, which one of these is like artist and not artist? Like which ones are like institutionally like Beth was robbed of the idea that like she could continue practicing her art. The mother, also was someone who never achieved it. So then there's a conversation like, were you just not that good to begin with? And then Beth, it's like, you were that good, but now you cannot be that good anymore. And then Nina's like, this is the moment where you will either be good or not be good. So she could have ended up like her mother, right? But she won't. And now she won't even end up like Beth. Right. Because for all intents and purposes, she's dead.
She was plucked, right, at the moment of ripeness.
I mean, but it's a plucking that she did, right? Like she was like, I decided my art, to do this is more important than my life.
Like pluck as a fruit, not pluck as a feather,
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Beautiful, amazing. It's been so fun like breaking this down. But before we wrap up, is there anything, the last kind of topic you want to cover?
I don't know. Like, can we talk about the music?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because it's like whatever. It's kind of basic. Like it's Clint, Marcella, Mansell, like long time Aaron Aronofsky, like collaborator. You can go as far as like Requiem for a Dream. But like it's so funny because it actually isn't that great. Like it's a kind of funky soundtrack where it's like really just re-performances of certain moments of like Black Swan and then adding like the Chemical Brothers into it. Like that's the whole, like the rave scene, that's their music, which wasn't actually a part of the score. But once again, this thing about like, and maybe this is the last thing, like, what is it to like, adaptation, remixing, like this thing about like, because it's both like a retelling, it's its own thing, like how like the music for me is a way that like I think that like other than watching it, like that clearly overlaps because like some of it like even the first track, like you get like the beginnings of like Swan Lake and then you get that weird distortion. It's like boom. So then it's like, like what is it to also think, the form of something, the pristine sonic form that like gives way to like, like a dissonance. And like, like what, like how much of it to be like, oh, like playing against, oh, homage, oh, critique, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know.
Nice. I actually didn't realize Clint Mansell was like taking Tchaikovsky and like adapting it, right? This movie is definitely like a layered adaptation of a lot of artworks. But thank you for bringing that in because I actually didn't realize. And I think that just makes for a richer adaptation, right? If it's visual, if it's auditory, it just makes it richer in that way. All right. Well, I think this is as good a time as any to wrap up. Colin and I have a feeling we'll continue to talk about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Off camera. But thank you so much for joining us today. Colin, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.